Today we're going to put this spiral cutter head into this 6-inch joiner. Let's go.
Yes, we're going to install the spherical head into this straight knife joiner. And we're also going to give it a little cleanup while we have it all apart. And I do have to admit to you that I have made a mess out of this bed. There is a rust spot right here. The garage door dripped some salty, stinky stuff, and it's rough. So we're going to sand it all down and recoat it with some Boeshield, which I've never used before. So I'd like to at least give that a shot. So again, I said it's a straight knife joiner, and you know how these perform. They just rip the wood right out of your hands, and the new head is supposed to be so much better. So this is about a 1.5 year old joiner. I said when the first time I needed to sharpen the knives, I would replace them, and I did. Like every good woodworker does, you buy it on Black Friday for yourself. Now we're going to use the Boeshield, the T9, and hopefully protect it from any other corrosion from winter. And we'll use the rust-free to spray and sand and do all that good stuff to make it good as new. Now I'd like to at least show you this spiral cutter head because, as you can see by the picture, it has the blocks that rest in the joiner and the pulley already on it. So some of the, like the bird helix and heads that you can buy for the planers and joiners, you've got to actually use a gear puller and pull all the old stuff off and put it on the new one. And this one you do not. They give you a little sleeve of cutter heads replacements, which is always nice. And it's time for this guy to speed this up so we can get to replacing all of this. So it comes with all of the bolts you need, the hex wrench for replacing all of those cutter heads, and the posts that rest into the joiner, and don't eat that, silica gel, and of course the spiral head. It's heavy, and I'm being weak, and yeah, it's heavy, Dave. So I'd like to get it all apart before I start cleaning on the beds. I don't want to damage myself. The blades are still sharp, even though I have dulled them quite a bit over the 1.5 years of ownership and have not sharpened them once. It's not a pretty upgrade, but it's not difficult either. It just took me an evening, 4 bolts, loosen the motor, and boom, out comes the fancy belt. I didn't buy the actually really fancy belt, so I thought, well, here's the part number, just in case I need that in the future. And my hope was to be able to lower both sides and pull that cutter head just right out, and you're going to see that I'm not going to be able to until I take out the portion of the jointer that holds the fence. Yes, this piece right here. And the bolts under here are what holds the cutter head in place. So we will remove those, and then we'll take off the fence apparatus. Yes, that part right there. And it could probably use some cleaning anyway, and I was able to clean that those mating parts and make it all shiny and brand new. So if we lower the outfeed table, we can now lift straight up on that cutter head, and it should come out fairly easily. There you go. The good one thing to look out for is, are there any shims? And there are no shims from the factory, so I am lucky there that hopefully my cast iron is stable and coplanar to the new head when I put it back in. I previously used paste wax on the beds like I have seen all over the place, and I'm pretty sure I can get it off with naphtha. Look, greasy, waxy, oily surfaces and machine parts. So let's clean. Now it's Boeshield time. Well, actually, this is the cleaner and rust cleaner, and I'll just give you a spoiler alert. It worked pretty well. It didn't go down into the metal and etch, but it was able to help me loosen the rust, and everything felt really flat after having used this. So I just gave the joiner a good wipe down, making sure the actual like rust spots got plenty of contact with this cleaner. The only other thing I felt after cleaning the joiner is I felt a little bit of rough spots here and there on it. So I used some WD-40 and a very high grit sandpaper. I didn't want to get down deep into the cast iron. I just wanted to give it a nice swift clean with the sandpaper, and the WD-40 lubricated that just fine. And finally, it's time to put the new head into the joiner. It came with the studs that you see there, and I've tightened those into the cutter head, and just simply drop it, the correct pulley to the pulley size, and drop it in there. Seat it nicely, and finally, the fun part. Yep, it's gonna come free. It was a little greasy. Now, I don't want to bore you with this part, but it's alignment of the head. You first have to see if it needs shimmed to make sure it is not higher or lower on the left side to the right side. And then you can raise up the outfeed table and coplanar it with the cutting teeth. And that's what I'm doing here. And actually went really smoothly. I was very happy with that. And there's the old feeler gauges. And you can see how it just barely touches the head. So no shims needed. And then we can align the outfeed table with the actual cutter head, and I'll do that here. And each joiner is different, so sometimes you want it right even with the cutter head, and sometimes you want it just slightly lower. And yeah, again, each joiner is different, but mine, I set it right at it, and it worked out really well. Now, I'm going to put this back together, and we're going to start joining some boards. Now here it is for its debut. Looks good, looks shiny, it's very smooth. Everything's going to work just fine. Oh, look at those teeth. We're going to chew up some boards now, and I want you to hear this because it is quieter. It is much quieter. So let's take a piece of pine here, and oh, Dave, there's a knot. I just saw the knot. I was so excited that I just ran it through there, and it just chewed it up. I would have picked something without the knot, but you can see how this has a little concaveness to it, and we're going to flatten this up.
I didn't put dust collection on. Or did I?
I'll just let the guy in the video talk for a while.
It's flat. One more little test, if you don't mind.
And I'm going to clean up the joiner here, and I'm going to do this edge test. And I do not know what to call this edge test, but I've seen it done on a lot of joiner videos, and I do it. I've done it to every single one that I've owned, and I run it halfway, pull it out, and then test it on the bed to the outfeed table, and there should be no light. Nothing should fit under the board on the outfeed table right there, and it looks really, really tight. So I'm going to call this upgrade a total success.
All right, now that I'm done, hey, this Boeshield, this T9, it's still nice and slippery. So we'll see how the protection works on this, but I think it's going to work good. The kit here, this is like an intro kit. It was like 25 bucks. I used the blade and bit. I cleaned a table saw blade, and it got the pitch off really easily, really quickly. And the rust remover did work. However, you saw me in the video, I did take some WD-40 and some sandpaper to it, and it worked really well. I can't say enough positive things about this Cutterhead. I mean, besides, I wish I would have bought the jointer with it. It's much quieter. It's like a smoother cut. You know, with straight knives, I'm sure you've heard it, but when you're passing that board over those straight knives, it really does feel like it's, you know, chipping away at it, and it just wants to rip the board right out of your hands. And with this, it's, you know, it's a smooth action, just cutting, and man, it's great. So highly recommend this, but buy it with the jointer instead of doing it the way I did it. If you have any questions, let me know. We'll talk down in the comments below. See you next time.